My wife's lover was in a car accident. She begged me through her tears to go to the hospital and donate blood, saying Dylan Parker has the rare Rh-negative type, commonly called panda blood. The entire Seattle blood bank was in crisis, and only I matched the criteria. I looked at her face, drained of color from worry and pleading, and smiled. Under the lights, the red veins in her eyes formed a fine mesh that sealed me in without a gap. Once, those beautiful eyes lit up only for me, cried for me, smiled for me. And now, they shattered for another man. Ethan, I'm begging you, Dylan, he's dying. Sophia Taylor's voice was trembling. She clutched my arm, her nails almost digging into my flesh. Consider me. Consider me indebted to you. I'll never be able to repay it in a lifetime, okay? I pulled my arm free and leisurely smoothed the sleeve she'd rumpled, my smile deepening. Save him? Sure. Sophia, under what identity are you begging me? Mrs. Parker? That title was like a poisoned needle, driving deep into Sophia's heart. Her face went ashen in an instant, her lips trembling, and she couldn't utter a single word. We hadn't divorced yet. Sophia Taylor, legally and nominally, was still my wife, Mrs. Johnson. But her heart, her person, had already gone off to another grand affair. The man was called Dylan Parker, a painter who appeared from nowhere, relying on some talent and a handsome way with words to sweep my wife of 5 years off her feet, willing to betray everything we once had. I discovered their affair 3 months ago. That day I came back early from a business trip, intending to surprise her. Opening the front door, the sounds coming from the bedroom made me feel as if I'd fallen into an ice pit. I didn't burst in to catch them in bed. That would have been too humiliating and too unseemly. I simply slipped out quietly and sat in the car downstairs all night, smoking 3 packs. By dawn, only cold, hard ice remained in my heart. From that day on, I moved into the study. Sophia seemed pleased to have the peace and grew increasingly distant with me. She began staying out all night, brushing me off with various lies. Between us, there was only a thin bedroom door, yet it felt like the Chuhan Divide, an unbridgeable chasm. I thought we were waiting for a showdown, waiting for a moment to put an end to this rotten marriage. I didn't expect we'd be met with such an absurd spectacle. Ethan, Sophia's voice sharpened, laced with a desperate sob. This is not the time for this. People's lives are at stake. Do you even have a heart? A heart. I repeated the word with relish, pointing to my chest. My heart was already taken out and thrown to the ground and stomped on by you and your lover the day you were caught enjoying yourselves. My words pierced the heart with every syllable. Sophia's body wavered, as if she could hardly stand. The tears in her eyes finally burst, rolling down in heavy drops. As long as you're willing to save him, whatever you want, I'll give it to you. My company, my shares, all of it to you. Just save him. She sobbed uncontrollably, finally throwing out her bargaining chip. Oh, that actually surprises me a bit. Sophia is the only daughter of the Taylor family. The Sunny Breeze design, under her name, is the result of her father's hard work, and it is her pride and entire fortune. For that man, she was actually willing to give up all of it. So it really is true love. My inner mockery deepened, but my face showed an expression of interest. Sunny Breeze design? I raised an eyebrow. That small company with annual profits of only $10 to $20 million? Sophia, do you think my blood is worth that much? Sophia was choked by my words. She knew about my fortune. I built myself up from nothing. The Titan Capital, I found it has risen to fame in the investment world, and the scale of Sunny Breeze design really seemed insignificant to me. But that was everything she had. She bit her lower lip. A little blood seeped from it, mixing with her tears, an indescribable look of misery and pity. Then, what else do you want? As long as I have it, as long as I can give it. I took a step forward, leaned close to her ear, and in a voice only the two of us could hear, I whispered, I want you, as Mrs. Johnson, to kneel and beg me. Sophia's body stiffened abruptly, staring at me in disbelief. Her eyes were full of humiliation, anger, and a trace of pleading. I looked at her leisurely, watching the various emotions play across her beautiful face, a surge of vengeful satisfaction rising within me. Didn't you love him so much you could give up everything? Then I want to see how noble your love can be when faced with dignity. Time passed second by second. Each second for Dylan on a hospital bed could mean the difference between life and death. Sophia's psychological defenses were collapsing bit by bit. Finally, she closed her eyes, and 2 clear tears slid down her cheeks. With a soft thud, she knelt straight down in front of me. Her knees met the cold floor with a dull thud, completely shattering all her pride. "Ethan, I beg you." Her forehead pressed against the cold floor, her voice hoarse and humble. "Please, save Dylan." I looked down on her, at the woman who had once been proud before me like a queen, now like a butterfly crushed into the mud. There was not a trace of pity in my heart, only a twisted, utter exhilaration. "Good," I nodded in satisfaction. "But kneeling isn't enough. Words are fickle. We'll make it official." I turned and went to the study to fetch paper and a pen, then pulled a pre-drafted equity transfer agreement from my briefcase. "Write down exactly what you just said in black and white. 100% of Sunny Breeze Designs equity transferred to me without compensation. Consider it payment. Your act of buying a vial of life-saving blood for your lover lying in a hospital." Sophia looked up, her face drained of color. She looked at the contract in my hand, her eyes terrifyingly hollow. She probably hadn't expected me to prepare so thoroughly, so ruthlessly. "What? Don't want to." I shook the contract in my hand. "Fine then. Keep kneeling. I'm going up to sleep. After all, the person lying in the ICU waiting to die isn't my kin." After saying that, I made as if to leave. "I saw it," Sophia screamed, sounding as if she had used the last of her strength. Her hand trembling, she took the pen and the agreement from me. Without even looking, she signed her name in the space for Party B. Those 3 characters, the name she had once been proud of, now felt like the epitaph of her life. I took the agreement, examined it carefully, and only after confirming it was correct did I tuck it away with satisfaction. "Get up," I said indifferently. "Drive to the hospital." Sophia, like a puppet whose soul had been ripped out, staggered to her feet and wobbled after me. Watching her hollow, distraught back, the smile at the corner of my mouth was cold and cruel. "Sophia, this is only the beginning. You think what I wanted was just a small design firm? No. What I want is for you and your lover to pay the heaviest, most agonizing price for your betrayal. I want you both to have nothing left, ruined and disgraced." They drove to Seattle General Hospital. Outside the ICU corridor, a few people were already standing. At the head of them was a middle-aged couple, well-kept but with anxious faces. From their dress, they were clearly wealthy. They must be Dylan Parker's parents. When they saw Sophia, they immediately surrounded her. "Sophia, how is she? Have you found a blood source?" Dylan's mother, Margaret Parker, grabbed Sophia's hand and asked urgently. Sophia was colorless. Her lips moved, but her gaze turned to me. The Parker's gaze also fell on me. Dylan's father, George Parker, a man who looked rather imposing, sized me up, his eyes containing scrutiny and a faint, barely noticeable contempt. "Who is this?" he asked Sophia. Sophia's fingernails dug in her palm, her voice as soft as a mosquito. "He is my husband, Ethan Johnson. He is Rh negative." At those words, the Parkers' eyes lit up instantly. Margaret almost lunged forward, grabbing my arm, her tone excited and commanding. "You're Mr. Johnson? Wonderful. Quick, go donate blood. My son is waiting for your blood to save him." Her attitude was matter of fact, as if my being here meant I was naturally obligated to serve her son. I calmly brushed her hand aside, dusted off the place she had touched, and said coolly, "Mrs. Parker, don't panic. What did the doctors say?" My calmness and detachment left Margaret momentarily stunned. George frowned and said in a low voice, "The doctor said Dylan lost too much blood and urgently needs a transfusion. The hospital's blood bank has run out of Rh negative blood and is scrambling to source it from surrounding cities, but that will take time. You're the only compatible donor we've been able to find." "Oh, really?" I dragged out the tone, letting my gaze sweep over them before settling on Sophia's ashen face. "But why should I save him?" One sentence made the air in the hallway freeze instantly. The Parkers' faces turned extremely ugly. What did you say?" Margaret's voice rose, pointing at my nose. "He's Sophia's friend. Sophia is your wife. Shouldn't you have saved her friend? How can you be so heartless?" "My wife's friend." I laughed as if I'd heard the greatest joke, scoffing. "Mrs. Parker, do you have some misunderstanding about the word friend? Or did your son fail to tell you what kind of friends he and my wife are?" I turned to Sophia and asked, word by word, "Sophia, tell them, What is your relationship with Dylan? Sophia trembled all over, lowered her head even further, bit her lip hard, and didn't dare look at the Parkers, much less at me. Her tacit admission in that posture already said everything. George's face went ashen. He probably knew some of the inside story, but he hadn't expected me to expose it so mercilessly in public. Margaret, on the other hand, was completely stunned. She looked at Sophia, then at me, as if she still hadn't processed it. What do you mean? Sophia, what does he mean? You and our Dylan. Enough, George barked, cutting her off. He turned to me, his expression having returned to calm, though his gaze had grown even darker. Mr. Johnson, let's be frank. If you have any conditions, state them. As long as our Parker family can do it, we'll make sure to satisfy you. After all, he's a crafty veteran who's been scraping by in the marketplace for years. He's much more savvy than his wife, who only ever lets her emotions take the lead. Terms, I smiled. My terms have already been discussed with Sophia. As for your Parker family, I paused, my gaze carrying a hint of amusement. I can't think of anything I need your help with at the moment. However, since you're being so earnest, I won't be rude. I pulled the signed equity transfer agreement from my pocket and handed it to George. This is the equity agreement for Sunny Breeze Design that Sophia just transferred to me. Mr. Parker, please use your connections to complete the business registration changes as quickly as possible. Tonight, I want to see the new business license stamped with the official seal. George took the agreement, and when he saw its contents, his pupils constricted sharply. He looked at Sophia, his eyes full of shock and complexity. Sophia kept her head down, her shoulders trembling slightly, like a criminal awaiting sentencing. Okay. George took a deep breath and practically squeezed the word out through his teeth. I'll take care of it right away. He pulled out his phone and stepped aside to make a call. His brisk, decisive manner showed he had wide local connections. Margaret finally understood. This man before her was using her son's life to get revenge on Sophia for her affair. She trembled with fury, but didn't dare utter another word, only able to glare at me with a venomous look. I didn't care at all. Soon, a nurse hurried over. Who is Mr. Ethan Johnson? The patient's condition is critical and needs a blood transfusion immediately. I answered and followed the nurse toward the blood drawing room. As I passed by Sophia, I stopped, leaned close to her ear, and in a voice only we could hear said, "See that? That's the man you love and his noble family. To save his life, they can without hesitation sacrifice you. Sophia, how pathetic you are." She suddenly lifted her head, and in her eyes, besides tears, there was collapse and bewilderment. I ignored her and walked straight into the blood collection room. The cold needle pierced my vein, and bright red blood flowed slowly through the tubing into the storage bag. I stared at that glaring red, my heart completely calm. Dylan, Sophia, do you think this 400 cc of blood merely bought a company? No, this was just the appetizer I meticulously prepared for your feast of vengeance. The real show is yet to come. After donating blood, I didn't linger at the hospital. George's connections were indeed powerful. In less than 3 hours, someone had delivered the completed business change documents and the new business license to the hospital. I took the documents and drove straight to Sunny Breeze Design. The company in the dead of night was empty. I used the spare key Sophia gave me to open the door to her office. It was decorated very tastefully, full of feminine delicacy and an artistic atmosphere. A few paintings hung on the wall, no doubt Dylan's masterpieces. I walked behind the desk and, like an emperor, sat down in the chair that belonged to Sophia. On the desk sat our wedding photo. In the picture, we were both smiling, radiating pure happiness. I picked up the photo frame and traced Sophia's face in the picture. Once, I thought we would be a fairy tale. I never imagined we would become a joke. Without hesitation, I flipped the frame face down on the table and then opened her computer. The password was Dylan's birthday. No need to guess. I tried my birthday once, and it didn't work, then tried Dylan's birthday that I knew, and it opened. How utterly ridiculous. I lit a cigarette and began going through all the company's project files, financial statements, and correspondence. Just as I suspected, this company had long become a cozy nest for her and Dylan. Even ATM. The company's accounts were riddled with holes. Several projects that were clearly done by the company's team bore Dylan's name, gilding him. Worse, Sophia used the company's working capital to buy Dylan a villa with a studio in the Seattle suburbs. but the books recorded it as an art acquisition investment. What disgusted me most was that I found a massive overseas remittance. The payee was Dylan. The purpose was to support his art exhibition in Paris. And the remittance happened to be when I was abroad last year, working day and night for 2 months on an important merger and acquisition project. She took the money I earned to curry favor with her lover. What a model helpmeet she is. The ember of the cigarette flickered, reflecting on my cold face. I backed up all the evidence, proving their misappropriation of company assets and embezzlement, encrypted the package, and stored it on a USB drive. By the time I finished, it was already dawning. I shut the computer, stood up, and took one last look around the office. From today on, everything here will be rewritten. Over the next week, I practically carried out a sweeping purge of Sunny Breeze design. I called an all-staff meeting and announced on the spot that the company had changed hands. Then, under the pretext of optimizing company structure and improving operational efficiency, I fired all of Sophia's loyalists and the cronies Dylan had planted in the company. For those designers who were truly talented but had been suppressed, I promoted them, gave raises, and entrusted them with important responsibilities. I began listing the company's assets for sale in batches. Those so-called art investment pieces that Sophia cherished, the paintings by Dylan, I treated as trash and had the cleaning lady dispose of them. For a while, there was widespread panic within Sunny Breeze Design. Rumors about me being a cold-blooded capitalist and killing the donkey after it has ground the mill ran rampant. Sophia finally couldn't sit still. After Dylan's condition stabilized, she rushed to my office at once. "Ethan, what on earth are you trying to do?" Her eyes were red, like an enraged lioness. "You promised me you were only taking over the company. You're destroying it now. This is my father's life's work." I leaned back in my chair and looked at her with amusement. "Destroying it? Sophia, have you forgotten that this company now bears the Johnson name? It's my prerogative how I handle it." I paused, picked up a document, and tossed it in front of her. "Or would you prefer that I hand these things over to the Economic Crime Investigation Unit?" The document contained printed evidence that she had embezzled public funds to buy Dylan cars and houses and to organize his art exhibitions. The moment Sophia saw the documents, all the color drained from her face. She could never have imagined that I would unearth her entire past in such a short time. You are shameless," she said, trembling. "Nothing compared to you and your artist." I sneered. "Taking the company's money to gild your lover's face. Ms. Taylor, isn't that embezzlement? Tell me, if the company's shareholders found out, what would they think? If your father knew from the grave, seeing you turn the business he left behind into a private garden to keep your pretty boy, wouldn't he be furious enough to crawl out of his coffin?" "Don't say it." Sophia clapped her hands over her ears and screamed in pain. "Don't say it. Why not say it?" I stood up and stepped toward her, inching closer. "You've already done it. What are you afraid of now?" "Sophia, I've told you before, this is only the beginning. What you and Dylan owe me, I'll take back bit by bit, principal and interest." My gaze was as cold as ice. I forced Sophia to retreat step by step until her back hit the cold wall, with nowhere left to go. She looked at me, and for the first time, true fear appeared in her eyes. She probably finally realized that the man before her, whom she had betrayed, was no longer the gentle, polite husband who always obeyed her. He was a demon awakened, and she had personally opened the gates of hell. "You want what?" Her voice was trembling, barely recognizable. "What do I want?" I laughed, reached out and lightly stroked her face, my movement gentle while my words were unbearably cruel. "I want you to watch, with your own eyes, everything you cherish turn to ashes before you. I want you to fall from the clouds into the mud and taste what it's like to have nothing." When I finished speaking, I withdrew my hand as if I had touched something filthy and took out a handkerchief to wipe it. "Go back and tell Dylan to take good care of his wounds. When he is discharged, I have a big gift prepared for him." Sophia walked away in a daze. I knew my words had completely shattered her psychological defenses. In the days to come, countless rifts would inevitably arise between her and Dylan because of suspicion and fear. And I only needed to sit back and watch them fight, then at the most opportune moment, unleash my first trump card. What I call the grand gift was delivered on time. 1 month later, the day Dylan was discharged from the hospital. That day, the Parker family held a small discharge celebration for Dylan at the suburban Seattle villa that Sophia had purchased for him with company funds. I received an invitation. It was delivered by Sophia herself. She looked haggard beyond recognition, her eyes vacant, like a puppet being manipulated. She said the Parkers wanted me to attend. After all, I was Dylan's lifesaver, so it was only proper to thank me in person. I gladly agreed. I knew it was nothing more than a trap. They wanted to mend relations, hoped I would show mercy and let Sunny Breeze design off the hook, and above all wanted to test my limits. Too bad, they'd miscalculated. I arrived in full attire, carrying a beautifully wrapped gift box. Inside the villa, there were few guests, mostly close friends of the Parker family. Dylan wore a well-tailored white suit, his hair meticulously styled. Though his complexion was still a bit pale, he retained that graceful artist demeanor. When he saw me, he came forward to greet me, a warm smile on his face. "Mr. Johnson, your presence honors me greatly. We are deeply grateful for saving Dylan's life. He will never forget it." He reached out his hand, wanting to shake mine, but I ignored him and handed over the gift box in my hand. "Mr. Parker, you're too polite. It's just a small gift, not fitting as a proper token. Wishing you a speedy recovery." Dylan's smile stiffened for a moment, but he quickly recovered and reached out to take the gift box. "Mr. Johnson, you are too kind." Beside him, Sophia watched us nervously, her palms covered in cold sweat. George and Margaret also came over, their faces wearing polite smiles. "Mr. Johnson is here. Please have a seat. Tonight you must drink a few more cups. Our whole family owes you a proper toast," George said warmly. "All right." I happily took my seat, as if nothing had happened, and drank with them. After 3 rounds, the atmosphere seemed cordial. George finally couldn't help himself and cut to the chase. "Mr. Johnson, I know that previously Sophia and Dylan were immature and did some things that hurt you. On behalf of them, I sincerely apologize to you." He said this, stood up, and bowed deeply to me. Dylan and Sophia also stood up, their faces showing remorse. Sunny Breeze Design was Sophia's father's life's work and her only attachment. Look, it's all in the past, and Dylan has learned his lesson. Could you show mercy and return the company to Sophia? Our Parker family is willing to pay double to buy the company back. George stated his terms. It must be said the old fox is cunning. His words were heartfelt, an apology wrapped in a generous offer, and most people might really have softened. Too bad, I'm not an ordinary person. I put down the glass and smiled. "Mr. Parker, that's something to say. We're civilized people, and we respect contractual obligations. The agreement is signed in black and white. How can you say it hasn't been honored?" George's expression darkened. I ignored him, turned to Dylan, and smiled even more brightly. "By the way, Mr. Parker, why not open the gift and take a look? I prepared it for you with great care." Everyone's gaze was fixed on that exquisite gift box. Dylan hesitated for a moment, then, under my watchful eyes, slowly opened the box. Inside the box, there was no luxury watch, no cigars, only a thick stack of documents and a folded banner. Dylan took out the topmost document in puzzlement. After just one glance, his face went instantly as pale as paper. It was a traffic accident forensic report. The conclusion of the report was written clearly. The vehicle's brake system showed signs of deliberate tampering. In other words, Dylan's crash was not an accident at all, but murder. What is this?" Margaret snatched the report and cried out. The entire party instantly erupted. All the guests crowded around, whispering and speculating. "Murder? Who did it? This is terrible. This is trying to kill someone." George's expression also grew extremely grave. He stared at me intently. "Mr. Johnson, is this your doing?" His first reaction was to suspect me. Fair enough. I had the strongest motive. I did not answer him. Instead, I looked at Dylan, who was trembling with fear, rose slowly, and unfolded the folded silk banner. On the golden banner, 2 lines of large characters were embroidered in a flamboyant script. "Presented to contemporary Shimin-Ching, Mr. Dylan Parker. You saved your lover's life, sparking my magnanimous heart." The signature comprised 3 shocking characters. Ethan Johnson. The entire hall fell into a dead silence. Everyone was left speechless, stunned by this banner that could only be called a humiliation. This wasn't a gift at all. It was plainly, in front of everyone, ripping off the Parker's face and throwing it on the ground to be trampled. "Mr. Johnson, you are being utterly unreasonable." George shouted in fury, his whole body trembling with anger. Margaret let out a piercing scream and nearly fainted. Sophia's face went ashen, her body swaying precariously. As for Dylan, he stared fixedly at me, and in his gaze, besides anger, there was a trace of unmistakable terror. Yes, panic, because he knew that if I could find out the brakes had been tampered with, I could find out more. I met his terrified gaze, the smile at the corner of my mouth growing ever colder. Don't be impatient, everyone. My voice was low, yet it carried clearly to each person's ear. This is only the first gift. I have a second one, which I'm sure will interest you even more. I snapped my fingers. The villa door was pushed open from the outside. 2 uniformed police officers walked in, followed by a man wearing a baseball cap with his head bowed. Brian, Dylan cried out the moment he saw the man. The color drained completely from his face. I didn't rush to explain. Instead, I made a please gesture toward the police officer. The lead officer scanned the scene sharply, his gaze finally settling on Dylan, his voice authoritative. Dylan Parker, we are the Seattle Criminal Investigation Unit. We received a report. You are suspected in a case of intentional injury and insurance fraud. Please come with us to assist the investigation. Insurance fraud? Everyone was taken aback again. Sophia, who had been silent the whole time, suddenly looked up, staring at Dylan in disbelief. I walked over to the man called Brian Lewis, patted his shoulder, and smilingly said to everyone, I forgot to introduce him. This Mr. Brian Lewis is Dylan's childhood friend and also an excellent auto mechanic. Then I turned to the ashen-faced Dylan and, word by word, revealed the truth. Dylan, do you think you were flawless? You had your childhood friend Brian tamper with your car to stage a crash that looked serious but was really only superficial. The aim was to put on a martyrdom act. You're lying. Dylan denied hoarsely. Why would I do that? Why? I sneered. For the money. Before the accident, you took out an accidental death and dismemberment policy worth $10 million. The beneficiary is you. At the same time, you wanted to use this crash to strong-arm Sophia. You know she loves you, and you know I'm the rare panda blood. You calculated she would beg me to save you at any cost, even abandon her company. That way, you could collect the $10 million insurance payout and make Sophia's family assets entirely yours. The worst part is, you could still throw all the dirty water onto me. Make me out to be someone who took advantage of the situation, force his wife, cold-blooded and heartless. Everyone will only sympathize with you and Sophia, these star-crossed lovers. Dylan, am I right? My voice, like a thunderclap, exploded over everyone's heads. The guests present all inhaled sharply. The way they looked at Dylan shifted from sympathy to shock and contempt. What a vicious, scheming man he is. For money, for a woman, he would even use his own life as a bargaining chip. You're slandering me. Where's the evidence? Do you have proof? Dylan was still making a final struggle. Evidence. I laughed and pointed at Brian. He is the witness. Do you think that giving him $200,000 as hush money would really make him keep quiet for you? I simply offered him $500,000 plus a chance to surrender for a reduced sentence. I took a USB drive out of my pocket and held it up high. On this is all the footage the miniature camera I installed recorded when Brian was sabotaging your brakes. Also, all the call recordings between you and him and the bank records of the transfers you made to him. Dylan, is this evidence enough to send you away and have you rot in prison? The truth was laid bare for all the world to see. Dylan's psychological defenses utterly collapsed in the face of that ironclad evidence. He collapsed to the ground with a thud, his face ashen, muttering to himself, No, it's not like that. It's not. Margaret was dumbfounded too. She couldn't believe that her proud artist son could be such a fiend with a heart of venom. She rushed over, grabbed Dylan by the collar, and screamed hysterically, Tell me, is what he said true or not? You beast! How could you do something like this? As for George, his whole face had already flushed the color of raw liver. He wasn't shocked, he was furious. Furious that his scheme had failed, that everything had been lost. He glared at me fiercely, his eyes as if he wanted to devour me alive. Because he knew that Dylan was finished, and the Parker family was finished too, a police officer stepped forward, took out cold handcuffs, and clasped them on Dylan's hands. And I, my gaze passing over this farce, fell upon the most disheveled and most pitiable person in the room. Sophia. She stood motionless where she was, like a statue worn by the wind. Tears flowed silently, soaking her delicate makeup. She watched Dylan being taken away by the police, watched the man she had loved so much she was willing to betray her marriage and give up everything, her eyes filled with despair, regret, and endless derision. She finally understood that, from beginning to end, she had only ever been a pawn. A pawn Dylan used to extract benefits, to use against me. Her love, her sacrifices, in the eyes of the man she deeply loved, were nothing but a carefully crafted con, a transaction with a price tag. What huge joke. I walked up to her, looked at her shattered state, and felt not a ripple in my heart. Pitiful? Of course it's pitiful. But isn't all of this her own doing? Sophia. I spoke, my voice calm and even. Now, do you have anything else you want to say? She slowly lifted her head, her hollow gaze fixed on my face. She looked at me for a very long time, her lips moving, but not a single word came out. In the end, as if she had used up all her strength, she bowed deeply to me. Svi. Those 3 words, hoarse, broken, were nevertheless unbearably clear. I did not respond to her apology, because I didn't accept it. Some mistakes can be forgiven, but betrayal, never. I merely said lightly, between us, it's been settled for a long time, ever since you signed that agreement. After speaking, I turned and walked away slowly amid the mess and the complex gazes of everyone. When I left, I casually threw that humiliating banner into the trash bin at the Parker family's villa, just like discarding that equally disgusting and pitiful marriage of mine. Dylan's case reached a verdict quickly. Intentional injury, attempt, insurance fraud, embezzlement. Convicted of multiple offenses, he was sentenced to 15 years in prison. The Parker family nearly emptied their coffers trying to smooth things over for him. But the chain of evidence I provided was too complete, ironclad, and irreversible. George turned white overnight. The company he had painstakingly built saw its stock plummet and teeter on the brink because of the scandal. As for Sunny Breeze Design, after I took over and carried out a series of decisive reforms, it shed bad assets, threw off its burdens, and was reborn with new vitality. The young designers I promoted exploded with astonishing creativity and went on to win several industry awards in succession. I renamed the company New Dawn Design, the meaning needing no explanation. And Sophia, she became the biggest laughingstock in all of Seattle. A foolish woman who gambled away her entire fortune for a lover, only to discover she was nothing but a fool. She lost the company, lost the love, lost her reputation, and became a destitute heiress with nothing left. She came to see me again and again, crying and begging me to forgive her, begging me to give the company back to her, even if only a small share, so she would have something to rely on to live. I didn't see her even once. My secretary told me that the last time she came, she stood under the company building for a full day and night, emaciated, her eyes like cold ashes. I glanced at her coldly through the blinds. This is the price she paid for her betrayal. I thought the story should end here. I successfully took my revenge on everyone who betrayed me and made them pay a heavy price. Inside, I was filled with the satisfaction of vengeance served. However, I still underestimated the evil of human nature, and I underestimated the depth of this conspiracy. Just as I was preparing to package New Dawn Design for sale and completely extricate myself from the charade, my lawyer, during due diligence, found an extremely small yet bone-chilling inconsistency. It was a medical record from 5 years ago, shortly after Sophia and I had just gotten married, when she had a miscarriage. That miscarriage hit us hard as a couple. It was also in that instance that the hospital's test report showed I have the rare Rh-negative blood type. Sophia's blood type was O, very common. The doctor even said regretfully that my blood type was unusual and warned me to be careful in the future because finding a donor would be difficult. That information was deeply engraved in our heads from then on. That's also why when Dylan needed panda blood after the car accident, Sophia thought of me first and, in fact, only me. But my lawyer discovered that the medical record from 5 years ago showed signs of having been tampered with. The raw data in the original file did not match what was displayed on the surface. A terrible thought flashed through my mind. I immediately drove to another reputable medical testing center and had a comprehensive blood test redone. 3 hours later, I received the test report. The report clearly states, my blood type is O, like Sophia, the most common and popular O blood type. I'm not some rare Rh-negative blood at all. I'm standing in a hospital corridor, clutching that flimsy identification report, my hand shaking violently, a chill shooting from the soles of my feet straight to the crown of my head. If I am not panda blood, then why did the doctor who tested me back then falsify my blood type report? Why was Dylan's car accident scam so precisely built on a lie that I have a rare blood type? These two seemingly unrelated incidents, spanning a full 5 years, have been eerily strung together by an invisible thread. This is absolutely not a coincidence. A far larger, far more vicious, and far more deliberate conspiracy, like an iceberg beneath the ocean's surface, slowly rises before my eyes. I immediately mobilized all my contacts and resources to investigate the hospital and the doctor who performed our prenatal checkups and surgery 5 years ago. The investigation results sent chills down my spine. That Dr. Samuel with the surname Wilson had long ago been dismissed from the hospital 4 years ago for a medical accident, then immigrated with his family and disappeared without a trace. And his background check showed that his wife and Dylan's mother, Margaret Parker, were distant cousins. All the clues link up here. I finally understand. None of this actually began 3 months ago when I discovered their affair. Nor did it begin a year ago when Dylan appeared at Sophia's side. It began 5 years ago, or even earlier. This was a carefully planned, years-long, earth-shattering deception. Dylan's approach to Sophia was not a spur-of-the-moment decision, but a premeditated scheme. From the very beginning, his target was the fortune behind Sophia, and even my Ethan Johnson's Titan Capital. 5 years ago, they used that relative Dr. Wilson to plant a time bomb in my medical records, a fabricated Rh-negative blood report. They waited patiently, waiting for the right moment. First, they had Dylan, as an artist, win Sophia's heart, making her grow distant from me and laying the emotional groundwork for the subsequent plan. Then they staged a car accident to detonate the panda blood bomb. Their scheme was far too well calculated. If I let old feelings or face get in the way and unconditionally donate blood to save Dylan, then I'll be a do-gooder sucker. Sophia will be grateful for Dylan's steadfast loyalty and, by comparison, only see me as weak and cowardly, making her even more determined to divorce me and then, with perfect justification, take her assets and fall into Dylan's arms. If I, like in reality, propose trading the company for the blood, then I'll be nailed as cold-hearted and taking advantage of someone in danger. They can likewise claim the moral high ground, win everyone's sympathy, and even later use coercion as a pretext to legally take the company back. No matter what I choose, they win for sure. They even plan for the possibility that I might investigate the accident's truth. So that's why Dylan dared to send his childhood friend Brian to do the deed. Because if it was uncovered, they could still play the victim, pinning all the blame on that third party who turned from love to hate and set up the trap, namely Brian. And Dylan would be at most a deceived, uninformed beneficiary. What a brilliant escape. What an enormous, convoluted scheme. If it weren't for my nature of wanting to cut things off at the root and my accidental discovery of this medical report, I'd probably have spent my whole life kept in the dark by this carefully woven deception. I would have kept thinking that I won against them only because of that humiliating banner and the truth about the car accident. Little did I know, I'd almost been utterly defeated. And what chilled me to the bone the most was Sophia's miscarriage 5 years ago. Was it really an accident? In the hands of a doctor who meticulously wanted to falsify my blood type report, isn't a small medical accident just too easy to happen? That unborn child was very likely the first and most innocent victim in their entire conspiracy chain. Thinking of that, I could no longer contain the raging fury inside me. This is no longer just simple betrayal and deceit. This is the ultimate of human evil. Dylan, the Parkers, don't you all want to play? I, Ethan Johnson, will play along with you to the very end. This time, I won't just ruin your reputations. I'll make you pay with blood for blood. I didn't make a scene. Like a masterful hunter, I quietly withdrew all my agents and began to plan with greater patience and greater meticulousness. The first thing I did was go to the prison and see Dylan. Through a thick pane of glass, when he saw me, his eyes were full of resentment and unwillingness. "Mr. Johnson, are you here to watch me make a fool of myself?" he sneered. "No." I picked up the telephone receiver, my tone calm. "I'm here to tell you a story." I told him, in full and exact detail, the truth I had discovered about my blood type and the entire conspiracy his family had been laying out for the past 5 years. I could clearly see Dylan's pupils constrict violently from extreme shock and fear. The color drained from his face, his lips trembled, and he couldn't utter a single word. He probably couldn't understand at all where his flawlessly planned scheme had gone wrong. How could this be? How could you know? He muttered, completely unhinged. If you don't want others to know, don't do it. I looked at him coldly. Dylan, do you think being sentenced to 15 years means it's over? No, this is only the beginning. I paused and dropped my bombshell. I reapplied for a medical malpractice review of Sophia's miscarriage 5 years ago. I suspect it wasn't an accident at all, but murder. Murder of my own flesh and blood. Tell me, if that's proven, how many years would a deliberate murder conviction bring? You're talking nonsense. Dylan shot to his feet, slapping the glass in agitation. You have no evidence. This is slander. Whether there's evidence isn't for you to decide. It's for the police to decide, I said leisurely. Oh, I forgot to tell you. The Dr. Wilson who tipped your family off back then, enabling their immigration, I tracked him down. I think he'd be very willing to say something in exchange for Interpol dropping any prosecution. Of course, I hadn't found him, but that didn't stop me from using the lie to shatter his last psychological defense. Sure enough, Dylan's expression shifted from excitement to utter despair. He slumped into the chair, his gaze hollow, like a walking corpse whose soul had been drained. He knew it. He was completely finished. After dealing with Dylan, I began to set about handling the Parker family. George's company was already on the brink because of the scandal. Through Titan Capital, I secretly allied with several rival firms and launched a malicious business strike against the Parker family's company, siphoning off funds, seizing orders, poaching key technical staff. Business is like war. With the sharpest and most ruthless methods, I bit by bit devour the Parker family's commercial empire. In less than 2 months, the Parker family's company declared bankruptcy and liquidation due to a broken capital chain. The enterprise George had poured his life's work into turned to dust. He himself, burdened with enormous debts, was placed on the court's list of dishonest persons. All high-end expenditures were restricted, and his properties and luxury cars were seized and auctioned. The once wildly prosperous Parker family plunged overnight from the heights into an abyss. This still wasn't enough. I compiled anonymously a detailed file of the evidence that they had plotted the conspiracy 5 years ago, falsified medical reports, and might even be involved in the murder of my child, and sent it to all the mainstream media in Seattle. Scandal in high society. A 5-year conspiracy of marriage fraud and property seizure. Artist or monster? Exposing the viperous hearts of the Parker father and son. The death of an innocent fetus. Accident or murder. One shocking report after another, like bombs, detonated public opinion across the city. The Parker family's reputation was completely ruined, utterly foul. They became rats in the street, everyone calling for them to be beaten. Margaret couldn't bear the blow, suffered a mental breakdown, and was committed to a psychiatric hospital. And George, under the double pressure of bankruptcy and public opinion, couldn't take it and suddenly had a cerebral hemorrhage, suffering a stroke and paralysis, destined to spend the rest of his life bedridden. A once prominent family thus collapsed in such a tragic manner, shattered and reduced to ashes. And the instigator of all this, me, I remained hidden behind the scenes. Everyone thought this was just a cycle of evil meeting its punishment. No one connected the downfall of the Parker family to me. Only I knew that it was I who personally hurled them into a hell of no return. After dealing with the Parker family, there was one person left. Sophia. When I was carrying out a corporate strike against the Parker family, she came to see me once. By then she had lost the pride and beauty she once had. She was wearing cheap clothes, her face haggard, her eyes filled with a humble plea. She knelt before me, clinging to my legs, crying her heart out. She begged me to spare the Parker family, saying George was innocent, saying it was all Dylan's fault. She even said she was willing to atone with the rest of her life, to slave for me, if only I would let go. I looked at her, feeling nothing but utter ridicule and disgust. At this point, she was still pleading for that family who had deceived her, used her, and might even have killed their child. Her stupidity and blindness were beyond cure. I kicked her away and said only one sentence to her. Sophia, do you know? I've never had Rh-negative blood. She froze, tears streaking her face as she looked at me, not understanding what I meant. I didn't explain further and turned away. I believe this riddle will be like a venomous sting, forever stuck in her heart, making her, in every day and night of the rest of her life, chew over it, savor it, and endure the pain of being mocked, betrayed, and deceived to the utmost. Later, I heard that Sophia went completely mad. She couldn't accept that her love had been a con, nor could she accept that she had herself destroyed everything she once had, becoming an utter joke. She wandered the streets every day, repeatedly murmuring, "Panda blood, my child." While, in the end, on a rainy late night, she leapt from the Seattle waterfront bridge, ending her pitiful and ridiculous life. When I heard the news, I was in my top-floor office, overlooking the myriad lights of the city. Inside me, there was not a ripple, nor the emptiness or loneliness that follows revenge. Only an extreme, cold calm. To those who thrust blades at me, I never believe in mercy or forgiveness. I only believe in an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. I believe in cutting the grass to root it out, eliminating all future troubles forever. Those who betray me must pay the heaviest price. I lifted my glass and, facing the dazzling night view outside the window, made a light toast. To the 5 years I lost, to the child I have never met, and to myself, who has finally hacked a bloody path out of this meticulously planned conspiracy and earned a final rebirth. After finishing the drink in my glass, I dial my assistant. Starting tomorrow, prepare to launch Titan Capital's overseas expansion plan. The first stop will be Europe. After hanging up, the smile at the corner of my mouth was confident and bold. Outside the window, there was endless night and starlight. And my future will likewise be as brilliant and dazzling as this starlight, with no more shadows.